There's one thing missing in the front office, and the Flames are actually bringing it to the table.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, and as always, I'm joined by my partner in crime, Nick Zararis. Nick, how are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. There's plenty to talk about.
Oh, yes. It's such a nice change from 3 months ago when we were scraping the bottom of the barrel for anything.
Yeah, it's very refreshing. Very refreshing. Unfortunately, it's not good stuff, but at least there's something to talk about.
Yes, and today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. We're going to talk a lot about accountability because I think that it felt like that was one thing that was missing last year in terms of coaching. And kind of through the off season because we weren't touching the word rebuild. And now the players are kind of taking over this ship and they're forcing everyone's hand.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit yesterday in regards to that. There's no more what's the word I'm looking for? There's no more faking this. There's no more deluding yourself. There's no more lying to yourself. They are what they are. This group does not have an untapped into ceiling, and even if it did, it wasn't high enough to justify trying to wait it out to find it. That's what last year was. They got an entire season of, okay, the talent's here. Are they going to put it together? And it never came to fruition. And they said, okay, maybe it's the coach. Let's change the coach, keep the group together, and see if that does it. And it's not entirely fair to put all of the blame for that on Huska for this not working. This is obviously more than just a coaching issue. This is a roster construction issue, which is kind of what we're getting to. That it's about time we have enough evidence to say that this is who this group is.
Yeah, and I thought about it a lot once they hired Huska. You know, how long is his leash going to be? Because it doesn't feel like everyone else is kind of seeing this team for what it is. Like they still have on these rose-colored glasses looking at this roster and the talent that's there. But I think that the players are kind of really the driving force now. And they have to be because it feels like no one else is going to do it.
Yeah, and specifically we can talk about that in the context of what we understand is going on. We understand that Noah Hanifin and the Flames had an agreement on the table that was good for both sides. And then both sides said, well, let's see how things go before we lock you in. And that was an example of some accountability where it wasn't the Flames only, because if it were up to the Flames, they probably would have had Noah Hanifin take that extension. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made that offer. Same thing we can talk about in regards to Nikita Zadorov's trade request going public as quick and as public as it did, where we understand that over the weekend, the Flames had a sit down, the players on the team, and they talked this out and hashed this out and showed some accountability and some maturity in a way that the organization refuses to. I'm sure it ruffled some feathers amongst guys on the team that, what do you mean you don't want to be here? Why are we playing, defending you, trying to do our best to help you win when you don't want to be here? Like I joked about yesterday about how Mike Tomlin always says, we don't want any hostages. If you don't want to be here, okay, let's facilitate that and get you out of here as soon as possible. But it's a good thing that they were able to kind of sit down and air it out, because I'm sure that's something that they need to do just in general, not just in regards to, hey, does Zadorov actually want to be here? Is he trying his best? Whatever. It's, well, we all know this is not working. And if we continue to kind of trickle this information out where it's like, well, actually, we had an agreement on the table, but we don't want to do it anymore. That is, in a way, the players forcing the team to be accountable and forcing the team's hand, where not only are they not winning, well, if the players continue to leak through their agents who go to the insiders and say, well, this is it, we had this, but we're not going to do this anymore. That is, in effect, forcing the team's hand. And it's unfortunate that the team is being forced into making the right decision, but it does seem like they're going to get there eventually. It's like in math class when you would get the answer right, even though your math didn't add up.
Yeah. You still get there. It doesn't matter how you get there, but at the end of the day, as long as the answer is right. I'm very interested to hear, I wish we could have been a fly on the wall for any of these internal meetings, because what I've gathered from Huska is that this team does, like, everything that happens inside that locker room or that conference room, wherever they're having this conversation, it stays there. You might, I don't even know if the players like would go to their agent about it, because it's obvious who the leak would come from. And they already have, they have two agents really, with Alan Walsh and Zadorov's agent, Mike something, about, where they're not afraid to hold back, and they don't care. They know that their client's going to get paid regardless. Like, no one has anything to lose, especially the pending UFAs.
No, absolutely. I think it's hard to understand exactly what side is you would assume that if an insider is reporting this was on the table in agreement, and then both sides backed away, that generally, I would think that comes from the front office, because that's trying to be as diplomatic as possible, make both sides look good, and be able to say to the fan base, well, we tried if things don't work out. That's where I generally assume when it comes something very diplomatic like that. Something as simple as Zadorov requesting a trade, that's out there because the agent wants that out there to put heat on the team, which unfortunately has the negative byproduct of teams not giving the Flames the best offer, because they know the Flames have to move the disgruntled player, because they don't want to have Zadorov there. And one other thing on this topic, and we'll talk a little bit more in detail about, who's worth what they could conceivably do and send them where, is just, it's really frustrating from a fan perspective that we all kind of knew that this was going to happen eventually. And instead of being proactive and trying to do what's best for the team, the Flames opted for as minimal change as possible, where they did internal promotions, guys to fill out the bottom half of the roster from the inside the organization, as opposed to an honest account of what didn't work last year. Best, again, and I said this yesterday, I said this 3 or 4 minutes ago, the best case for this group was a first round playoff exit, more than likely, like absolute best case. If you're playing Vegas, if you're playing LA, if you're playing Colorado, Dallas, the Flames would be steep underdogs in every single one of those matchups. That is the absolute best case for this group when you assemble a roster like this. So it's really frustrating to see the team so stubbornly cling to something that best case doesn't have a ton of upside.
No. And again, we talked about it yesterday, but it feels like it's more about the revenue and the fear of losing that. And I don't know. That doesn't feel very realistic to me. I would like to have a few more home playoff games to bring in some more money, if that means losing a little bit now. But coming up next, we are going to continue to talk about the current state of the Flames, and of course, what could we get for who, and would it be worth it? But before we do that, we are going to take a quick break, and I'm going to tell you about Game Time. Game Time is the app to be using, especially if you want some great last-minute deals. And you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets for your next big event, whether it's sporting events, music, comedy, theater, whatever it may be. You can use Game Time and get a discount. When you use promo code LOCKEDONNHL, you get $20 off. I love Game Time because you can see the view from your seats before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It is the place to find last-minute seats. I will be using Game Time to hopefully snag tickets to the Bruins Devils game next month on my birthday, and I will be using promo code LOCKEDONNHL to save money. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into Locked On Flames. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. I'm horrible at assembling trades.
So is everybody. Don't feel bad about that. This is something I talk about a lot with a lot of different people. It's not just us, because different general managers value things differently.
Mm-hmm.
There are teams that would rather have the draft picks and put a greater premium on draft picks, especially teams that feel like they draft well. They covet their draft picks a little bit more, or franchises that have a hard time attracting free agents or getting people to stay. Those teams have to maintain a decent cupboard of draft stock because they know it's really their only path to getting quality players. So it's not just you. It's not just everybody on the internet offering, 2 middle sixers, a B prospect, and a first round pick for Leon Draisaitl. It's not just the people on Twitter. It's everybody. Now, there are degrees to that. Some people like to give a little bit too much. I generally am guilty of falling into that category where I would rather overpay to get the piece I want and definitely get them as opposed to missing the boat. I know a lot of people, every fan base is guilty of overvaluing their own stuff. They are very guilty of that, where a prospect that got drafted 2 or 3 years ago that's had a couple of 40, 50-point seasons, they put the same value on that as a first-round pick between picks 10 and 20, which just isn't reasonable, because by the time you're year 4, the cap hit goes up. You're not going to be – a draft pick is worth more than a 40 to 50-point middle six forward because of the cost associated with that. And that's where we can kind of talk about this. Our understanding so far, at least based on what's been reported, is that the Flames are looking for NHL talent. The example that was used was what they did for Toffoli, where they got Sharangovich. Sharangovich hasn't done a whole lot since they got here, but I at least understand the point of what they were trying to do in acquiring him. We talked about this yesterday in regards to, I gave the example of Jake DeBrusk for Noah Hanifin 1-for-1. That's the type of deal the Flames are looking for their rental guys. And when I say rental guys, I am putting I am putting Lindholm and Hanifin in one tier of that, and I'm putting Zadorov and Tanev in a different tier of that, because those are different types of rentals. A team that's trading for Hanifin or Lindholm is more than likely going to try and do an extension with those guys because they see a multi-year vision for them.
Right.
Tanev and Zadorov, those are strict. I think a playoff team is trading for those guys. They'll ride them out for the playoff, and they'll go to free agency on July 1st next year. That's really the difference and where we can start this conversation.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's a fair way to, split them up. I think that any team would be happy to have really any of those guys, but a contending team, they're going to want, it's that instant gratification. They don't care about what comes after that. If they extend, that's great. But if you are investing in a player like Elias Lindholm or Noah Hanifin, you want to have that reassurance that you didn't just put all your eggs in one basket for 3 or 4 months of their type of hockey.
That's very true. And we rarely see that in the NHL, where teams are willing to trade for that type of pending unrestricted free agent, the one who's typically between 26 and 28, that's their one chance to get to free agency, because those players are typically highly motivated to get to free agency because that's the best chance they're going to get to maximize their value. The only example that comes to mind of a team trading for an unrestricted free agent without really being able to get them locked up long-term is Matt Duchene, when the Blue Jackets traded for him that one year, knowing that they probably weren't going to be able to retain him, Panarin, or Bobrovsky, and said, you know what, screw it. This is the best chance we're going to get. Let's see what happens. They won a playoff series. That's still the only time the Blue Jackets have ever won a normal playoff series. I know they beat the Leafs in the bubble, but whether or not that counts is kind of up for debate because that was one of the play-in round series. But that team made that assumption. When you are trading for Lindholm or Hanifin, you are more than likely going to have the cap space to keep them long term. You are going to build them into your plans because that type of player is better typically than what you were going to find at unrestricted free agency, which is another component of this. That those types of players, those are not guys that are going to be there on July 1st, more than likely. The only way they end up there on July 1st is if they stay with the team that has their rights all the way through the season. That's really the only way that type of player reaches unrestricted free agency. It's very rare that happens. So, in regards to Lindholm and Hanifin, we know the Coyotes were linked to Hanifin a few weeks ago. That makes sense. The Coyotes desperately need defensemen. They have NHL caliber players they could send in a trade and a copious amount of draft picks to facilitate that.
Yeah.
We just need direction. If the Flames are going to commit to, we don't want to be terrible and we want roster players back, okay, then you need to be focusing on doing that for all of these trades, not just the ones where you feel like you can get the best players possible.
Yeah, and I don't know what it's going to take for any of this to happen because, again, it feels like everyone in a decision-making position is just so like, okay, we're fine. Oh, okay. 41 home games, maybe a playoff round, and it's good enough. When it's really not. I think it's unacceptable, but
I was talking about this with somebody today, actually, because you know how the Leafs played a game in Sweden today in the middle of the day at 2:00 that was on NHL Network and blacked out for most of Canada, where you had to be in the Leafs or Ottawa region to get the game.
that's incredible.
The teams don't care about increasing revenue. They care about getting a bigger piece of the existing revenue, which is why you see all of these short-sighted decisions, whether it's the Flames, whether it's the Predators, those mid to small market teams that don't want to bottom out because they fear that if they bottom out for a few years, their fans will never come back. So they would rather be in that soggy middle. When in reality, if they were at least transparent about their intentions and what the direction of the team was, they would be able to cultivate a little bit of trust with the fan base as opposed to what they're doing now, which is generating some apathy. Flames fans are a loyal bunch. The Flames have consistently finished top 10 in attendance for most of post 2000. Post 2000, they've consistently finished in the top 10 of attendance. It is a loyal fan base. They just want to win. If you come out and tell them, hey, we're going to trade some of these guys and it might be a year or two before we're competitive again, most fans would be okay with that trade-off because it's an honest and it's a direct path. There is a clear, okay, step back now, improvement later, as opposed to right now, which is just holding serve, which at best we know isn't good enough.
Do you think that Ryan Huska would ever pen a letter like John Tortorella did? Just like, trust me, we got this.
I don't think he would because he doesn't have the resume to stand on. Like Tortorella's won a cup. He's, I think, the winningest or second winningest American hockey coach of all time. Like if you have that if you have those credentials, you can say, hey, I know it's going to be bumpy, but I know what it takes to win. So give me some time. I'm going to make sure, even if we're not that good, we're going to be competitive. Whereas if that's coming from Huska, who's only ever been, I think, an AHL head coach and not an NHL head coach, it's not as meaningful. So I think that only works if you have the track record to stand on. I do think that would be a good sign, a good gesture, though, from the coaching staff, the general manager, etc., is just saying, hey, we know this isn't working. We are working on it, as opposed to doing what they're doing, where it's, we know we're a good team and it's going to turn around, which just kind of feels like an empty platitude.
Yeah, I mean, if you throw like Mark Savard and Jerome McGinley's name on that too, I feel like you might have a little bit more buy-in, as long as like Craig Conroy's on it, I guess, too, because he's the decision maker in most of this. But I know we talked about Noah Hanifin to Arizona briefly. Do you see now that what's his face, Elias Lindholm is playing like a maybe $6.5 million player, do you see more teams being interested in him?
This is the key. A lot of teams are not going to have the accrued cap space to be able to afford these guys till closer to the deadline. That's the first issue and part of why the Flames are going to have to wait. The types of teams that are going to trade for those guys are probably going to be pretty close to being against the cap to begin with. Now, we understand that they want roster players back, which might make it a little bit easier to make the money work going in both directions. But as far as I think about it, those types of guys, Hanifin, Lindholm, I feel like they have to get moved closer to the deadline because there's just going to be a little bit more cap space accrued for the teams that acquire them. But they could trade Zadorov or Tanev basically any day, and it would make sense because they're not as expensive. They could retain some salary to make it work. And there are teams that have and they don't make as much money, so the need is a little more. It's not as difficult to make the money work. There are plenty of teams that could use any of these guys. I know the Canucks. I know the Leafs were linked to both defensemen. The Devils have been linked to Zadorov because they need their Ryan Graves replacement. So there are landing spots out there. These are good players. Mm-hmm. The Flames have a real opportunity to dictate how the market plays out this year and really hold a lot of cards in a way that they really haven't had a chance to in a while.
So hopefully things will start swinging in a positive direction once these dominoes start to fall. But coming up next, we are going to wrap up the show with the schedule because the Flames are kind of in a weird position with competitive teams here. But before we do that, we are going to take a quick break and talk to you about FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's a $150 bonus bet if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time than right now to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use and you can cash out immediately. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Have you decided on any picks for the weekend?
We are going to, as soon as we get off of recording this episode, I'm going to pop into the group chat and try and put together a Thursday night football parlay. So, yeah.
Love that. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us today on Locked On Flames. We appreciate it. You can follow us on Twitter, X, whatever you call it, at Jess Belmosto and at Nick Zararis. Oh, the Flames. Oh, the Flames.
The big issue they have is they can't BS anymore. There's no making... They can keep saying, and I imagine they're going to keep saying, guys like Huberdeau, guys like Backlund, guys like Huska are going to keep saying, we're going to turn this around. We know we're better than this. And it's not for a lack of trying. They're not playing atrocious hockey. When you watch, it's not like they're the Sharks out there. They haven't given up. They are trying. They are just not a well-constructed roster. They don't have skill sets that complement each other. They don't have a goal scorer. Amongst all 12 forwards and the 6 defensemen, they don't have a true goal scorer. They do not have a shoot-first talent who can put the puck in the back of the net from far away. They don't have anybody with that skill set, and it's really hard to score when you don't have any pure shooters. You can try and outwork teams, but that has a defined ceiling when you have to work so hard for every single goal. It is really hard to live that way in the NHL.
I think that the Flames trying to turn this around is like that gif of the golf cart or like the football cart, whatever, stuck in between the walls because they can't turn it around and it's impossible for them to do it. And that truly feels like where the Flames are at. And you're not going to see any change by doing the same thing over and over again. You're going to drive yourself crazy.
No, and we talked about that a lot last year in regards to they need to do something to change this. And the best they did was fire the coach, and it hasn't really done anything all that different. I mean, you mentioned it when we were trying to figure out what we were going to talk about today, the schedule coming up. They got Vancouver tonight, which Vancouver plays a very chaotic, up and down, open-ended style of hockey. The Flames play a style of hockey that should, in theory, give the Canucks a hard time. Whether or not that will actually work, though, they have to play the game and figure that out. They've got the Islanders after that, who are also in a similar spirally type situation where Lane Lambert might be on his way out there. They just lost to the Canucks yesterday after getting a lead and blowing it again. Then they have Seattle, who is also off to a pretty mediocre start. They have Nashville, who is off to a really mediocre start. And then they have Dallas and Colorado, the 2 best teams in the Central. It feels stupid to say last gasp because it's pretty much pointless anyway. But if you can't pull points out of the Islanders, Seattle, and Nashville, let's get moving here. Let's trade Zadorov and Tanev. Let's get DeSimone settled into that spot where he's going to play the rest of the season. Let's get this figured out and let's start making things happen as opposed to keeping waiting. It's just, we are not getting anywhere when we keep waiting and waiting and waiting.
Maybe they should have Chris Tanev pack his bags and just go with Vancouver. I think Canucks fans would be super happy about that. Maybe leave someone behind. I don't know who you're leaving behind, but just let us know. It's so annoying to try to like convince yourself like this is going to be a win. They got this because they find new ways to lose every time.
The issue is the Flames aren't good at anything in particular. It's not that they're a bad team. It's that they don't have anything they're good at. The thing they're best at is forechecking, which is nice, but forechecking alone doesn't win you hockey games.
Right.
That's the issue. They don't play with a ton of tempo. They don't play with a ton of finesse or skill.
Mm-hmm.
They try and outwork you. They have a lot of guys who are pretty good at that. But if they're not winning those puck battles in the corners, they're not banging around the net front looking for deflections and rebounds, they're not going to score enough goals to win most nights. And it's hard to live that way when you can't score consistently. You can get by on defense and goaltending, but you got to be able to score every now and then. The Bruins are making it work with only 2 lines that contribute offense right now. Because they have great defense and great goaltending, they can survive with only 2 lines generating offense. The Flames defense and goaltending, even though Markstrom has been good, it's not 950 like what Jeremy Swayman and why am I drawing a blank? Yeah, Linus Ullmark are doing. Yeah, they're Markstrom's having a solid season. He's not playing to that tier, and the Flames defense isn't as good as the Bruins defense, and they're not scoring enough. So you can try and win with defense and goaltending, but you got to have the 1 or 2 elite goal scorers to make up the balance for that, and the Flames don't have that. So it really does kind of feel pointless, in all honesty. I'll be watching tonight. They have the requisite skills to slow down the Canucks and make this game a slog, and that's the way you have to play skill and up-tempo teams, is try and forecheck them into oblivion. But the Flames have been so sloppy in transition that I fear that it's just going to be JT Miller and Pettersson and Brock Besser up and down the ice, generating odd man rushes, getting the Flames defense to overcommit, and leaving Markstrom or Vladar out to dry.
It just takes me back to one of the games against the Canucks in the shortened season where the Flames conceded 4 goals in the first period to the Canucks, and the Canucks had like 40 shots on goal in 20 minutes. That's not good for anybody who might be new to hockey. It's not good. And I truly hope that they're able to at least make it through the neutral zone and complete passes, because otherwise this is just going to be a dumpster fire, and they're living up to their name of the Flames.
I just want them to figure out what the plan is. That's all I'm asking for. And I know I just said a few minutes ago that they're not going to be able to trade Lindholm or Hanifin until closer to the deadline because other teams aren't going to have the cap space. Doesn't mean I'm not frustrated that they're just playing them, and they're going to play, and hockey is hard to avoid injuries. It's great we're talking about, well, they have all these assets. All it takes is one weird play and all of a sudden you don't have assets to trade anymore.
Exactly. And we're going to keep our fingers crossed that none of that happens. And, it's a quick winter, and what is it like? Is it early March, or is it back to late March now? I don't know. Whenever the deadline.
Early March.
Well, when we get there, we hope that everyone is healthy and the Flames are able to make the most of it. And that'll do it for today's episode of Locked On Flames. Thank you so much for hanging out with us and making Locked On Flames part of your day, whether you're listening on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube, as well as wherever else you may be hanging out with us. So subscribe. It's appreciated. We'd like to get to 500 subscribers on YouTube whenever. But Nick, do you have any parting words for us?
I hope the Flames at least make the game interesting if they're going to keep me up late tonight.